So, we're a little late on this episode.
Yeah.
We've actually started to get a little bit busier in terms of the Stereoscope side of things, which is the video production company we run. So, good news is our new film, The Forgotten, well, it's not new, but the film we shot in 2019 has released on Amazon Prime.
Sweet.
After a year of kind of being not in limbo, but like the production was done, and then now we're doing the festival thing, and then now it's out. COVID kind of killed the festival dreams for it, but the good news is that anyone listening to this podcast can go see what our other life is like as narrative filmmakers.
Yes.
And see the kind of shenanigans we get up to there. So.
Yes.
Yes.
No, it'll be good. I so far it's had a pretty positive response, which is nice.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun making it, and we were, I think since then we've learned a lot about the process of making movies, like we always do. But that was like a year ago, so we've learned so much, and our process has gotten a little tighter since then. But I'm still very proud of it. And
same.
Our friend Jeff was the one who produced the film, and we had a great time with him, and he's all about it too. So.
And for you D&D nerds, be on the lookout for I'll be posting about it, I'm sure, but look out for it's more of a setting faction module that's going to be produced by a company called Evil Beagle. They make online publications as supplemental D&D content. So they actually reached out to us and wanted to get more information on the villain of the piece.
The witch.
Yeah, and produce an entire faction that works mechanically inside of 5e D&D using our character as an inspiration. So that was cool.
Yeah, I know some of those words. That's cool. Yeah.
I know some of those words. I speak some nerd. But
a little bit. That's exciting. Yeah. So that's going on. And then we also produced, or we were in production for a music video this past weekend as well. So that's why we're kind of a week behind on the release schedule for this, which we're trying to avoid, but I think life gets in the way. Can't do everything at once. So anyway, now that that's out of the way, we can get into what we've been wanting to talk about, and it's actually still pretty timely because
I feel like it's only become more relevant.
It's more relevant, yeah. Today of the day of this recording, I think marks the day after the Republican National Convention has ended.
Correct.
So it just gives you a sense of where we are in terms of our timeline versus your timeline in the future. Listening to this, but you want to kind of intro the topic?
Well, sure. Actually, this is more of something when we spoke about doing this episode. This was actually something you brought up that you wanted to talk about, but essentially, when we had initially talked, it was a few days after they had announced, Biden had announced that his VP pick was going to be Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
And I have to try very hard to say that name correctly.
What do you mean?
Well, because I don't know, for some reason, instinctually, because I'm a visual thinker. So when I'm thinking of somebody's name, more often than not, instead of thinking of their face, I actually see the word written out.
Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah. And when I see her name written out, I want to say Kamala. Or no, I don't. Now I'm getting it wrong.
Now you want to. Now you're saying it right.
No, I'm saying it right. No, I want to say Kamala. That's what I want to say. I want to say Kamala Harris. Not Kamala Harris. And that is apparently a thing that they got upset about, people mispronouncing her name.
It happens.
Yeah. Just don't say her name in Swedish. So for all of you listeners out there, it turns out that if you translate the exact spelling, if you were to put the exact spelling of Kamala Harris's first name, at least, Kamala, into Google Translate and then translate from English to Swedish, it translates to horrible.
Did you try that?
I did.
Okay. Google's going to turn that off.
I'm sure they are. They already have.
They're going to change the language. And we're like, that's not a word anymore. Yep. So exactly. We got the news that Biden had made his VP selection, and it was Kamala Harris. There you go. I got me thinking about it, which is interesting. And kind of going off of the last conversation we had on the podcast, this kind of lended itself to be like the next kind of the evolution of that conversation almost, in terms of like politics, current politics, and being given the choice between one party and another party, and you're kind of stuck with that choice if you want to be part of the system in terms of voting. So, yeah, I'm not really sure how to get into it, but it's to me, my first instinct when I heard about it was, and I'll just get into it now, I guess, is like, we had this big protest movement after the wake of the George Floyd tragedy, and primarily it was about, ending police brutality, especially against black and brown people in this country, but it's police brutality in general. I mean, we saw after when the protests started, there was some rioting, but there was also a lot of peaceful protests going on. And the police response in a lot of places were very heavy-handed. And, I wasn't in all those locations at all those times, so I don't know the context for every video I saw. But there was a lot of videos where, there's one that comes to mind where, like, there's a few girls standing on their front porch of their house, and they see a line of police coming through their street. And, it's perfectly legal to be on your porch. Like, even if there is a curfew, you're on your porch, you're at your house. Right. And these police officers start shooting at them. Not real live ammo, but they're still like, it's still stuff that hurts. And,
it is assaulting their person.
Yeah, which is so police brutality is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And so we have this giant protest movement still going on. And, the Dems, for whatever reason, doing backdoor deals and stuff like that, bring out the man who is responsible for, I believe, is the 93 crime bill, arguably a big architect of that bill, and arguably one of the pieces of legislation responsible for a lot of the woes that we are protesting against right now. So we have him, and then he picks California's top cop, who you can look it up. There are several instances, and I think Tulsi Gabbard did a great job of pointing some of them out on the debate stage, of Kamala using her office as a bullying tactic against everyday citizens, and a lot of them having been poor citizens, people who had no choices. So to me, looking at this, I'm just like, wow, read the room, guys. Read the room. But clearly they feel, and we can get into this a little bit more, but clearly they feel that, they can pretty much run anyone they want, and they feel like they're guaranteed to win. I don't know if that's true, but, looking at the Democratic National Convention, that's kind of what their platform was. It's like, we're not Trump. They didn't really bring up any policy issues or policies that they want to enact, or they didn't have a platform except that, hey, I'm not Trump, Right. And, I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Which to me is disappointing, because I know one of the things that immediately was brought up in the RNC, I don't know how much of that you watched.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
But one of the things that they were pretty quick to bring up during the RNC is that, like, he doesn't have a plan. And then, of course, the articles come out like, well, he does have a plan. Check out his website. And I'm like, but you had like a week of content, like 2 hours a day, to convey that idea, like these policy plans of yours, these ideas that you want to push forward, like what you're about as opposed to what you're not about. And the majority of the runtime was more talking about what they're not about, which is Trump.
Yeah.
So
no, exactly. And at least that's how it came off, you know? And yeah, the RNC, I guess, brought up some more things. I mean, that's its own can of worms.
Yes.
At least it had better production value, but other than that, it wasn't less.
I can say that.
It wasn't much less of a shit show, but it was. They did at least have that act together, and they're starting to at least develop a strategy that's where they're hitting the Biden campaign where it probably hurts.
Well, the other thing that I sensed in comparing those two, my personal impression of watching both of those, because actually our last episode, little fun personal fact, our last episode sparked a bit of a discussion between my girlfriend and myself, in regards to our one clip that we released about it, where it was talking about, how I don't vote when I'm given two bad choices.
The infamous clip.
I know, yeah. No, that sparked some discussion, which is what I want to
Yeah, no, that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
And speaking of, before we get too deep into that, anyone who, and this is a standing rule on this podcast, anyone who disagrees, even agrees, but wants to delve into a topic, but especially disagrees, open invitation
for sure.
to hit us up, and we'll try to make something work where we can have that discussion further, because Alec and I, we have our own opinions on things, and we align on a lot of things. We don't align on everything, but we do have a way of thinking that is not your way of thinking all the time. So
Right.
if you think we're not representing your views, and you'd love to just, and you know us, and you'd love to like delve into that topic more, especially representing your side of things, you are welcome to do that on this platform. And we never want to stifle discussion. We never want to force people to have that discussion either. But
True.
But, we're here in order to get these ideas out into the world, and have people engage with them, because we love doing that, and we care about the world we live in. So we don't want it to just be handed off to those that in power and without any sort of fight.
Correct. And I think it kind of speaks to like what our goal here is at the podcast. Kind of speaks to what I didn't see with either the DNC or the RNC, is this willingness to actually convince other people that disagree with you of your perspective, convince them of your side.
Actually,
there isn't even
I disagree.
Okay.
You know why?
Why?
Because I think the DNC, half of their speakers were Republicans. So that they're making a reach across the aisle. They don't like the progressive side. They don't want the AOCs or the Bernie Sanders there represented on the DNC.
I'm talking about convincing people, though. Like convincing establishment politicians to join your side is not difficult.
Convincing the neocons and the...
No, convincing normal people, like regular people. That's all I'm talking about.
Oh, they're regular people. They just happen to have
And the
several
RNC
more
had
zeros in
the
their bank
RNC
account.
had a few Dems of their own.
Oh yeah, I know.
But yeah, it's and like that is
they're on the same
frankly
side.
meaningless. Yes, that is frankly
They're basically
meaningless
the
to
same
me.
people. It's just I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is the rhetoric on either side. It's just talking to it's directed at the people that already agree with them. It's not directed at the people that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, my goal here is always, like, obviously to get our views and perspectives out and try to work through topics and have a real conversation about things. But I'm always trying to, like, I would always welcome a conversation of, like, let's have an exchange. If you feel like you are diametrically opposed to what I'm talking about, I want to talk to you more than the people that agree with me. Like,
get me off this podcast, because I usually agree with you on probably more than I should. I mean, but it's like it's just like I think we're very similar is what I'm saying. Like, and we're I'll call you out when I feel like it's necessary. But the thing is, I'm not everyone else, and you're not everyone else, and so we're just gonna have a pleasant discussion here.
Right.
And I might put up a little bit of a fight, and you might do the same, but it's not gonna be much. It's more of just conveying ideas. So again, if anyone is listening to this and they're just like, oh yeah, I know these guys, I want to talk to them about this, that, and the other, like, change their mind, or at least have a discussion so that we can open up the dialogue.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what we're about. If you bring some ideas to the discussion that we hadn't thought of, or I hadn't thought of, or Alec hadn't thought of, whatever it is, and expand the mindset of what's going on here, that's what we're about.
Yes.
We are people, we are not our ideas. Our ideas can change. Our ideas are weather. Like I'm not going to get personally offended if I am proven wrong, or if I've changed my mind over time based on the information I'm given.
Correct.
So I think everyone should be that way.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we don't see that very often, especially online, which is why the podcast exists.
Yes. It's also why it's named the way it's named.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we're not here to spread our ideas. We're here to expand on them.
We're not even necessarily here to pick a side of an issue either.
No.
Yeah, I have my own perspective, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm part of this camp. Like, I'm not. I've learned, as I mention every episode, I've learned from being in a cult that I don't want to be part of anybody's camp.
I'm starting to get, since you mentioned that every episode, I've talked to a few people and about the podcast, and they're just like, he always mentions that cult. What is that about? And I'm just like, you got to wait for that episode, man. That's going to come. I'll let you know when it's on air.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, actually, that I already know how I'd talk about that one, but we'll get to that when it happens.
later. Down the road.
So I guess my question, because honestly, like you brought up this topic of Kamala, and then I guess we're also expanding it to include a lot of the other political rhetoric we've heard since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot since then.
Now, you made a case for why that seems like an unwise choice in the context of what is happening. Now, my question to you is, do you still feel like these candidates are unwise choices divorced from the context of riots or protests or George Floyd or anything like that? Like, if you're looking at them as just candidates on their own, not in the context of this year, how do you judge them?
Yeah, if we I guess divorce that idea of, protest movement and all that. So Biden and Harris are what do you call them? They're just, it's Biden. It's what's his name? Obama.
Wow.
It's been a few years. It's Obama 3.0.
To be fair, Obama doesn't talk much lately.
Well, except for the last few weeks, but
yeah.
3.0. Biden is bringing the same team in that Obama had in his cabinet, and it's just going to be that. We can argue all day about whether Obama, the presidency, I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy, but we're talking about the presidency and the politics of it, whether it was good or bad. I mean, everyone knows he's an eloquent speaker. He really knows how to command an audience and command a room, and he makes you feel good. Like he's pleasant to look at, pleasant to watch. It makes you feel good. Biden isn't those things.
That is true.
So he's got his own style. But that being said, the policies, I think, are just going to be a continuation of what we had before. And that's kind of worrying to me.
Yeah.
Just because it's business as usual. Nothing's really going to fundamentally change. We had this really amazing movement with the progressives on Bernie's side, and how, again, so close to really making an impact. And then we had those kind of backroom deals with all the people back there, and in the Democratic side.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, and they did him dirty again, and so I have no faith in. There are people running that show, and I have no real faith in their ability to lead the country effectively,
or at least not with the public interest in mind.
Exactly. They have
effective, sure. But
they have interests
effective for us.
They want to continue the endless wars. They want to.
That was a big thing. I was very critical of Obama for the entire time. Actually.
Yeah, they didn't do. I mean, in the DNC, the convention, they had nothing about the wars.
Nope.
They didn't talk. In fact, they had Colin Powell on there. This is the guy who lied to the UN about weapons of mass destruction, and you're touting him as the guy who wants Biden.
Yeah.
And you had several people like that, and I'm like, okay, this is a good chance. This is personally for me. This is a good reason for me not to agree with Biden as our candidate for the Democrats' side.
Right.
So to answer your question, no, I don't think they're a good candidate choice. Is it the will of the people? I don't know.
I would argue no.
I could make that argument as well.
From the Democratic primary, it's clearly not.
No, they had their dude. They had their dude. Once they realized, like, okay, this is the guy we can run, they went for him. So I just feel like we're being played again. We talked about this already on another previous episode, but we're just being played as a citizenry, and we're just given these two options. That being said, I'm not a fan of Trump either. I don't want people to think that, like, oh, Biden, Harris, they suck, so I'm gonna vote for Trump. It's like, that's what we were talking about in the last episode. It's like, why do I have these two awful choices?
Oh, and on that point, I can't take credit for this quote, because in the comments that I got and the replies and DMs that I got from that clip about not voting, I actually had a very, like, we don't spend too much time together, but I do consider him a friend. He's a very smart dude, but he reached out to me and he was just like, so I saw this clip, and I have to say I agree with you, but he said something that I didn't even think about. He goes, he says that if you don't have the right to say no, then it's not freedom.
You mean the right to say no in terms of I don't want to vote for either.
Correct.
Right.
Like, if you have to vote in order for the system to work, then it's not freedom.
Maybe the thing is, you don't have to vote.
I mean, yeah, that was our point last time. But yeah, and to do the whole us versus, and this is the real thing that I think sets off a red flag in my head, is breaking it down to an us versus them mentality, right? At the end of the day, whether or not you agree with them, whether or not you think that they have their own best interest in mind or that they care about you, yada, 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 unless you're willing to take up arms against people that politically disagree with you, you have to live with these people. You have to find a way to make that work, because that's society, right?
Yeah.
And so constantly reinforcing in your mind this framework of, I am anti this one candidate, and that means I have to do everything in my power to stop this candidate and anyone who would support him or just not support me, like to the point to where, you know, coming after people that are even kind of like said, are saying what you're saying. Because I know a lot of people will definitely translate you being critical of Biden and Kamala.
It's the wrong time to be critical of them.
Right.
Because they're the saviors.
Right.
Because there's this narrative now that Trump is, you know, this fascist dictator who is going to destroy democracy as we know it.
Which we can get into that.
You have to accept that framework in order to
get to that point.
In order to be there.
And that's a framework that I don't accept.
I despise the administration. I despise some of the things that they do, but I am not there. I don't think that at all. But anyway.
Yeah. And it's, to me, whether it's, and that's the thing right now, I guess in the context of this conversation, my statement could be translated into only applying to the people that are on the Democratic side and who support Biden. And
no, it applies to everyone.
It applies to everyone. The Trumpers do the same thing.
Oh, yes.
They do the exact same thing.
There's no good, that's what I keep saying, there's no good choices.
And the thing that gets me is, like, I'm watching this and it's like the pendulum has just swung opposite, because the way I feel in 2016, how we got Trump wasn't because Trump was immaculate as a candidate.
Oh God.
We got Trump because people really didn't want Hillary. There was enough people that really didn't want Hillary, that really didn't like the establishment politics because it wasn't working for them, and she clearly is just a figurehead for establishment politics.
She is, and she also had a thing against working class people.
Right.
You know, she definitely, there's a few
She's been
quotes.
an elitist her entire life,
yeah,
as far as we're concerned.
And Trump found that base that everyone likes to shit on, but they're a real group of people who are really struggling, and working class people. Yeah. They haven't been spoken to in a long time.
At least not compassionately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, even though clearly based on the 4 years we've had with him, he lied about what he was going to do for the most part. Some things he did do, but for the most part, he didn't deliver on those promises of, you know, bringing jobs back to this country in a big way.
Right.
But you could argue that he was working towards it in terms of the China stuff with trade deals and stuff like that.
I will say this, for a lot of the things that he failed to do, he didn't fail to attempt them.
A few things.
Yeah.
But
there's some things that he definitely
draining
didn't
the swamp was not one of them, because he, as soon as he turned around, he's like, I got it. And yeah, you guys handle your stuff. You guys know what you're doing, right? Okay,
and then he had to systematically get rid of everybody.
Well, yeah, but like the thing is, the people who are still there and the people who are like, you know, the people who rely on for feedback are established Republicans who've been there since Reagan. You know, it's like, these guys have not gone anywhere. They haven't been voted for, but they're in the cabinets and they have not left.
Yeah.
So besides all that, I forgot where I was going with that. But what I was saying, okay, so that base of people who, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them are just working class people who've lost their towns are destroyed, especially in the Midwest.
And you have
based on these
trade
deals,
like even in Pennsylvania, the reason Pennsylvania swung and is going to probably swing again is energy policy.
Yeah,
because like there's huge populations of people that rely on coal mining and all these other such things, and fracking as industries that support their entire communities economically.
Biden's, I think, he hasn't signed on to the Green New Deal or anything like that, and Kamala took her name off of it. So I think because it would be embarrassing if Biden lost Pennsylvania.
Yes, it would be. But it's stuff like that where it's like you for a very long time those people were not talked to. They weren't reassured that like, hey, even though we want to move in this direction, like it's very simple in my opinion. Yeah, we want to move in this direction, but we want to move in this direction in a way to where you're not left behind. That's all you have to say. I mean, you have to follow through with it, of course.
Yeah, because like, there is a case to be made for like pursuing green energy and progress in terms of technology, and that does phase out old technologies. It does.
It always does.
But speaking to those people and making sure that they're, hey, we have a plan in place to make sure that you won't be left out in the cold. And even if that's not true,
wow.
I get what you're saying. It's theater. I know. These at this level, it's theater.
But they're just bad actors because all you have to do is say that, and they hadn't been saying that for decades.
Yeah, until recently. Yeah.
Until recently, and it's one of these things where it's like in 2016, you had more people that just didn't want more of the same. It wasn't so much. It was just that Trump did.
Well, you had people coming to the polls who hadn't voted in years.
Yeah, because they knew they had no shot of getting what they wanted.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And so Trump presented himself as a viable option for something different.
And he was untested. We didn't know what he was going to do. It was like, okay, I'd rather have something new than something I already know is not going to do anything for me.
Right.
It's just going to be more of the same.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that the Democrats, the rhetoric that I'm hearing now is that the Democrats have turned into the new Trump voters. Like in 2016, you had a bunch of Trump voters. I would argue most of them were more voting against Hillary than they were for Trump. Yeah. And now you have literally the DNC just being bold-faced about it, vote against Trump. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this didn't work well for us the first time.
What do you stand for?
Right.
What is your platform? We can all assume what it might be.
Right.
But the thing is, you've shifted your opinion so many times about what you are that no one can keep up with you. And you out there to serve us?
I frankly just don't trust Kamala. I wouldn't.
No, I mean, how many times has she flopped on a position or flip-flopped on a position?
Well, it's not even that. I think I look at more at, for me, I look at how somebody uses authority.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if I want a good test of how you're going to be when I grant you more authority, let me see how you are when I give you a little bit. Right? And the thing is she, like, even though she, is the right demographic of candidate, so to speak, it's one of these things where as her tenure with what, now I've lost what she was, DA, district attorney.
Oh no, attorney general.
Attorney general. There we go. As her tenure as attorney general, it was like there are things that she clearly did that were not in public interest. They were to benefit her. They were to benefit whoever else she was palling around with. And she would do it at the expense of real citizens, normal people that have way less power than her. For what? Like, it's not even like it was like a greater good. Like, I could at least get behind a greater good
to
argument.
be the presidential candidate in 2020.
Right.
Or at least a VP.
And it's just one of these things where I'm like, look, You can say all you want, but your behavior suggests otherwise.
She made a lot of friends in the tech industry, being the AG in California.
Yeah.
There's plenty of videos of her going to those tech events and being kind of the keynote speaker and, speaking to those people and making friends. And she's brought a lot of money into the Biden campaign from that.
And the thing is if any of the implications about Biden's health or fitness to serve are even remotely true, the fact is that dude's super old.
That's our president.
But it's very possible that because of his age, he will be, if he were elected, I think he will be the oldest one to be elected in.
That I'm not sure, but he'll be one of the oldest for sure.
Feel free to fact check me on that. But
kill us in the comments.
Right, but it's very possible that during his time as president, he could croak. Mm-hmm. And now you have this person as president. And frankly, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, how far did she make it? Did she? It's been a few months, so excuse me, but did she? I think she dropped out before Iowa.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of them, yeah.
She touted herself as being one of the premier candidates from the first debate, and then from there it was downhill for her. She wasn't a popular candidate.
No.
So It's not the will of the people.
It's not even the will. It's not even the will of Democrats. That's
hey, Democrats are people too, man.
I know, but it's like you're not even getting like a representation of the entire country. You're just getting a representation of what Democratic voters think, and they don't like her. And I'm just like,
they didn't go.
What
for
are we
her.
doing?
Yeah. It's just it's a weird. It's not a choice. It's like we were not given a choice.
No.
You know.
And I feel like they weren't even really like. It feels like they're not trying.
Oh, they're not. Neither side is trying.
Right.
Neither. I mean, maybe a little bit more now on the Republican side. They're trying to hit Biden a little bit in a way that actually maybe is sticking, since the polling numbers, and put your faith in polls or not, but the polling numbers have now. We're at the same level at this time in the candidacy or in the race between Hillary and Trump. We're at the same part. In that same level, or that same time period, it's similar polling numbers. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
It took me a while to say, but similar polling numbers between now and then. And so, obviously, it could go either way still. But the thing
we
is,
are now within
a
the
month
margin
ago,
of error window.
Exactly, a month ago, Biden, by sticking in the basement, not talking much, not going on many people's shows, and not saying, "Hey, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black" and stuff like that. Idiot. It's like he thinks black people are just one monolithic, stupid entity. Like, that's so racist. Dude's a racist. Anyway, sorry.
But he can't be racist. He picked a woman of color for his VP.
Because of her color. Because he picked her because of the color of her skin. I don't know what's more racist than that. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like this might actually get me in trouble, but like, that's just a racist move. To me, if you're going to pick someone purely based on the color of the skin and not for the content of their character,
which
she has proven herself time and time again, exactly, to be a mistrustful person, or someone we shouldn't trust.
Distrustful.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, no. I mean, it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've seen it. You may have, but there's that YouTube video that bounced around for a bit where it was like woke people and racists are the same thing. Right. And it was just, I don't know if you've seen this video.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's done humorously. So it's these two dudes, and one's wearing a shirt that says racist and the other one's wearing a shirt that says woke, and it's like done like an odd, like unlikely couple video where it's just like, oh, I mean, at first I didn't think we would work out, but we have so many things in common. And it's just like the woke person's talking about like having spaces for black voices and black people, and the racist like, yes, that's exactly what I want.
Oh, segregation.
Right, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's really funny. They have a lot of examples.
It's funny, but it's not funny.
Well,
because
all humor comes from sadness.
What
you know this.
happened to us? We are all in this together. Like, all of us in this country who are part of the citizenry, we all are in this together. Even if we don't agree on every single issue.
Nor should we.
No. I'm not even trying to say that. We're trying to make a better country for ourselves, and the people who are in these positions of power in government, who we elect, supposedly, are not in it for us.
No.
And they've proven time and time again they don't care about us. And they do a great song and dance, and a lot of people get excited every 4 years. And I'm tired of getting excited. I've had my heart broken too much because these people just don't give a shit about us. And I will admit I'm speaking from a position of like pretty relatively good privilege, especially for someone in our age group.
Yes.
I'm doing okay financially. Yes. I'm doing okay, but there's a lot of people out there, especially now, who aren't doing okay, and all they want is to know that they're gonna be taken care of. And I don't mean like getting government handouts or whatever like that. But like, there's a coronavirus going on, and people are being told not to go to work, and like, they can't do anything. They can't feed their families. It's just.
But they can protest.
Well, you can only protest if it's for the correct side.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Just such a blatant, like, what is happening? What weird, bizarro 1984 world are we living in?
I wish I could remember the quote that was actually Kamala's VP acceptance speech. during the DNC, but I think she said like racism is a virus that we need to take care of. And I was like, but sure, there's a big deal with racism. Didn't dispute you on that. But we have a virus that's actually killing a lot of people right now that you guys aren't talking about, except for like, hey, we're going to take care of it. When I get into office, I'm going to provide PPE for the world. And it's like, no.
We're already running around with masks.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do to make sure this country gets back on its feet?
Right.
We're on the precipice of a huge financial meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, speaking right now, a lot of people can't afford to buy food for themselves or their families.
Correct.
And no one's talking to them.
And it will only get worse.
Because you know why they don't talk to them? Is because they don't go to the polls.
Correct.
Because no one serves them. They don't feel like they're being represented. Maybe their skin color now is going to be represented, which is, there's something to be said for that. But if you're not going to actually if you're not going to actually do the work and change the way that things are running, you haven't changed a thing. You just changed the makeup of the people in office. That's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. I mean, speaking as somebody who's had to live out of a car before, I don't care if you look like me if I'm starving. Don't care.
Yeah, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for the people who are struggling? What are you going to do for everyone? Not just the people who are filling your pockets with cash or giving you more power.
Right. Yeah. It's now, to push back on a bit of the doom and gloom, what I have seen as a result, and this is actually something that we talked about in the last episode on voting, because you asked me, well, what do you do? And my response was, well, get more involved, become the third option, right? And what I've been noticing, like, ever since, not that obviously our episode didn't do that, but or didn't spur this on, but I'm noticing more and more, non-politician people getting into local races.
And that's really, really nice.
That's
really great. I've been seeing that too, especially this 2020 around. And a lot of these primaries are going around, and yes, we're seeing a lot of I think I talked about her in one episode before, but there was someone who was an organizer for protests, and she ran for either Congress or Senate, I forget. But she's the front runner now in that community, and there's a lot of other people like that who are putting out who are getting rid of these established people who have been there.
Was it Cori Bush?
Yes.
Bush. Yeah.
She said she was the good Bush. That's right. But there's other examples of that happening now. And that's the key. That's the third option.
Mm-hmm.
You could be running as a Democrat or a Republican, but it's like, what are you about?
Right.
What are you going to do? And when you get in there, are you going
to be corrupted?
Yeah. How?
Yeah.
And I don't know what that world is like. I don't know how, because they'll do everything in their power to make sure. I mean, we see that with Schumer and Pelosi.
Mm-hmm.
They'll back candidates that are just they know they can work with, and they know they can run and then you've got people like AOC who are just
endorsing Biden.
Well, no, throwing their weight though, but she'll be throwing her weight behind people like you're mentioning, people who are from the community, and people who, in her case, they're more progressive, but they're also they're of that community.
Right.
And then I think that something happened this week where Pelosi was she endorsed someone, and AOC endorsed the other person who was more progressive and more of a community-based person. And I'm all for that.
And like I said, I don't have to agree with all of her policies, but I applaud that woman.
You can respect her, though. I respect her.
I do respect her doing that.
Yeah.
Being willing to vote against party or just against the leadership of the party. That's a good thing.
She comes from her place where she's already, she's, from the beginning, she's been a separate kind of thing than what the established people are. And so we need more people like that in there, of differing, and I don't even mean like that politically, just different from the established group of people, neocons and neoliberals and all that stuff. We need people who are in there for their communities and who are trying their best to make sure that those people are taken care of.
You mean public servants?
Yeah, exactly.
We need actual
representation. wow, what a concept.
Right.
Yeah, when we say third option, we don't necessarily mean a third party, which is, not very likely. I know that there's the People's Party that's being started right now. Then they're having their People's Party convention, which is, lovely idea.
Sure.
But and I would be glad to support that if that goes into anywhere. But but yeah, people who are like not weak-minded and people who aren't corruptible by money very easily, and people who have the best interests of their communities at heart, or their states, whatever wherever they're representing,
someone with strong moral character.
But you know what that means, though, is it's up to us
to support them,
to support those people,
yes.
and not to just be like, we'll just vote for whoever is the
left
or the right.
I never said that I never vote.
Yes.
Like, voting definitely matters, but you have to make it matter, and you have to choose. Like, for me, I feel like, obviously I'm not trying to disparage anybody that votes for whatever reason, but I am saying that, like, for me, the way I treat it is, like, that vote counts because I make it count, right? I'm not just giving it to whoever based off of some single issue or whatever. Like, I'm going to back this person.
I'm going to vote for a person.
Because I feel like this person represents what I see as a public servant.
Yeah, and that
doesn't mean I agree with all of their policies.
I don't think you can.
No, it's impossible. Unless I'm running.
I don't think you can agree with someone on their policies. But the presidential election is just, man, it's tough because they're representing the entire country. And
yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean to represent an entire country?
You get to go to the UN and stuff.
No, I mean... No, I mean, it's like a concept. Like, damn you. Get to go to the UN.
You get to go golfing a lot, too, apparently.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no matter what side you're on.
It's just like such a lame...
Hey,
golfers.
Stop disparaging people.
Whatever.
There are people who like to golf.
I know. It's boring.
For you.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never been golfing. I wouldn't know.
I've been. I don't like it.
Okay.
But it's not. It's a sport. It's definitely a sport because you get a workout doing it, surprisingly. But like, it's just not enjoyable. Like I don't know. It's akin to fishing, but I don't like feel like I accomplished anything at the end.
Or you don't get to eat the ball.
Right. And I don't get to like feel like get that like caveman DNA to come up out of me where I get to bring meat home or whatever, and it's like, I caught this, we cook and feast. Like, I don't get that after golf.
Do you do that with any other sport? Like, I don't know. Do you like tennis? Do you feel like that after tennis?
No, I break the laws of physics. I also don't like baseball.
What about basketball?
Basketball's okay.
Do you feel like a man after basketball?
Well, yeah, because you're kind of it's a physical. It's like a physical test.
I'm just trying to figure out where you are with this.
I genuinely think that like my opinion on sports is definitely dependent on how much testosterone is released in my system when I do it. Like, that's really I think that's what it is.
Okay.
But that's just me. I'm not
How'd we get here?
What?
How'd we get here?
I don't know. I don't know how we got here. What was I talking about? I was talking about because you made some joke. Thank you. You got us here. All right. So anyway, no, what does it mean to you? Like, if you could conceptualize, like, what does it mean to represent a country of people? Like, how do you, if you had to do it, that's a better question.
If I had to be president?
If you had to do it, how do you mentally approach being a proper representative for an entire country? Especially this one, where people disagree a lot. Like, how do you do that?
I think you have to be crazy to be president of the United States. Maybe that's why I don't like voting for them. I'm like, oh, you are a narcissistic piece of crap. You have to be crazy to want to do that. I mean, I know you get $400,000 a year, but not worth it. I don't know. I that's not my world. To represent a bunch. Like, I have a tough time representing myself. Mm-hmm. Like, I will meet someone new and I'll be like, hey, how you doing? You know, like, how do I do the hand thing? Like, you
Oh
know.
man, that's super funny.
Hey, with the other day with our shoot, I did it.
You did fine.
It was in the zone, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good shoot.
Anyway, no, but like if I'm speaking from my perspective, which I am, approaching the job of being president, representing that many people, and trying to do good for that many people. I mean, you are a figurehead at that point. You do have power, and you are able to make decisions and things like that, but only to a degree. You have to be backed up by legislative branch and all that. But just to take it on, that's a lot. That's a lot. I would prefer, like, if I could, I would try to do it as effectively and as empathetically as possible for all the people I represent. But how would I approach it? I
think you're approaching. You said something there that made me think. Where you, I basically what I'm thinking is that you have two roles. You have what's actually on paper of like what your job is, right? In terms of like maneuvering like figuring out what the troops do and
executive branch
stuff. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then you have the figurehead role. What you are is a representation of America, right? So what does that mean? Do you represent the people, or do you represent the values of America? Because arguably that is what makes America America, is its values. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right.
So if you're the president, you're the idea personified.
Yeah. Yes. And that's
Allegedly.
One thing that I will say in defense of Obama, even though I don't like his foreign policy. In defense of Obama,
he did represent that really well.
He did represent that really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's
he
something
seemed
I
like
will.
A great dude.
Yeah, he seemed to embody a lot of what American values are based off of. And I feel like that's part of. I think that is a
Very
key
inspiring.
to why he was effective, why he's inspiring, why people view him so charitably, despite the fact that the man could, issue a drone strike 1 minute and then get up on stage and smooth talk. And
talk about fatherhood.
Right,
like
and talk about fatherhood.
Yeah.
Like all of these things. And so it's like...
I mean, you got to do the drone strikes. I mean, what are you going to do if you're president of the United States? You got to do them.
Giving me a bunch of drones.
I'm sorry.
I got to play with them.
No, I mean, it's like you got to use the military as a president.
Well, yeah.
I mean, just within reason.
It's how you use it that matters. Yes, but you have to use it. You're right.
I'm just saying, like, you just didn't go probably willy-nilly drone strikes.
I know.
I mean, maybe sometimes, but...
Anyway.
Hindsight is 20/20. That's not what I meant, but yeah.
I'm surprised nobody's trying to run with that as a campaign slogan. Just hindsight 20/20. Boom.
There's a joke there somewhere.
But anyway,
I feel like I'm gonna have a community moment where it's just like, don't eat the crab dip. Yay, yay.
But like, yeah, I think that in terms of how you, like, obviously your policies matter, but I think what changes the way that the country sees world events or even like national events is dictated exactly by what values you represent as a person, as a symbol of America.
Okay.
In that station as president. So let's break it down from that way. Like, we've already talked about policy, right? And I already kind of answered this question in terms of Kamala, but like, for me anyway, what values do you feel Joe Biden represents? Because we already know that Trump doesn't do that. That's the one thing Trump is supremely horrible at. So
he's very upfront about who he represents.
So
Biden has a good story, which has been feeding into his mythos. About him coming from, like, I mean, he does come from a family of like oil executives, but like they had some hard times too. So, but he comes from the working class, is what I'm saying. He speaks really well to the working class. I mean, that was something that like it's come out recently that he wasn't really that respected in the Obama administration because like there are a lot of elitist people who were like, went to really high-end schools and all that stuff. And Biden's just kind of like a guy who you could have a beer with. And he's, had his own ideas about stuff. He didn't always agree with the policies that the Obama administration came out with. And so It's kind of funny now that they're like working for him, but or would be working for him if he were to be elected. And
Yes.
but that's kind of where his mythos is right now. It's like he's this working class guy who I thought, and I might be going on a tangent here, but like one of the things that the Trump campaign is now using against that is like, hey, Biden comes from these working class roots, and he would go to working class people and shake their hands and take their money, and then immediately send their jobs out to China. And I was like, ooh, that hurts. Ooh. Yeah, because
that's effective. That's an effective jab.
Dude's been in government for like 28 plus years or something. And
I thought it was more like 40 something. But yeah.
Maybe it was 48.
Yeah, I think it's like 47.
Didn't he get elected? He got elected to like Senate or something at like 29 or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
I think like senators and stuff should have term limits, by the way.
Ooh. We'll come back to that. Finish your thought.
Sorry. No, but that's what okay, so getting out of the tangent. Yeah, he that's his thing. It's like, I understand the working class people. I'm from that group. I understand. I speak to them. I can work with them. I know their struggles and I know how to fix them. That's his thing, but his practice is a little different.
So you don't feel like he tries to purport that value, but he doesn't seem to actually.
I'm sure he's a great dude, and I'm sure you can talk to him and like,
right.
but like his loyalties don't lie with that group of people.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. For me, I honestly can't put my finger on it. I can't speak to like other than if he was not old as dirt, right? If he was a young dude, I would not know I wouldn't even be able to guess what I think his value system is, like how he rank orders like decisions, like. Oh,
yeah, I'm talking about his loyalty.
Yeah,
I mean, I see your point. He doesn't really have a platform.
Because like his age inevitably makes me suggests in my brain. His age suggests to me that family values are probably something, but like. To what degree that's true may just be me being prejudiced or ageist or whatever. But but yeah, it's one of these things where I'm like, I can't place him squarely on anything, in terms of a value system, and that is part of that is because he can be molded. He can be molded, but he also
surroundings.
Yes, I mean he's a politician in that definition. Yes, and that's. I mean, that's pretty much what people saw about Hillary, but to a much more extreme degree. And it's just, for me, like, that matters a lot. Like, obviously your policies, like, I kind of try to balance those out, but to me, it's like, what do your policies say about you? What do your actions say about you? And then, like, how do you actually comport yourself? Like, do you convey what I feel are the values of America, the things that America stands for, the things that unite us, right? Because those are the things that should unite us.
Right. I couldn't tell you what him.
And Trump doesn't do that, which is why there's divisiveness in our politics. I mean, still divisiveness. He didn't start that. That was that way before he showed up. But
yeah, he turned it into a sport, though.
Yeah, and he's winning at that sport right now.
He is the best of the nicknames so far.
He is. Even the RNC, like random dudes, random people were taking jabs at Biden that were funny. I was just like, dear God. Like I was watching it with my girlfriend and she's not a Trump fan. And even she was just like, that's funny.
I don't know what happened. Those old men know how to do memes now.
I know. And so, but a better question.
Maybe they're Russians.
So, I guess to kind of be more of a, we've been talking about problems and we've kind of mentioned some solutions, right? I've had an idea that I've had bouncing around in my head in terms of this process, right? This whole electoral process, like even down to the local level, right? And one of the things that I think we all can agree on is that we want, and the reason I'm thinking about this is because you brought up term limits.
Yes.
One of the things I think we can all agree on is that we want money out of politics, like private money out of a public function or public system. It doesn't, right.
Yeah, what are you doing there, man?
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't our taxes pay for that? I'd be more than happy for my taxes. Like, even if you were to tax me a little bit more the year leading up to an election year just to ensure that there's money in the pot for that. Like, the way I see it, and like the math I haven't worked out. I haven't actually like crunched numbers, but essentially the way I'm thinking about it is like, let's just talk about it at like a local level. So you're talking about like a mayor, right? You're running for mayor. Now, if you can prove that you have some sort of you have a primary or whatever it is that you have a primary, and it's not based off of money, because that's dumb. Like, that's a dumb way to base that, obviously, because right now you have to make a certain amount of money.
You just excluded a bunch of people
that could be potentially great at that job.
Yeah.
Right.
And they come from the community.
Right.
Yeah.
It should be about community support. You do an initial ballot, and top 5 people out of that initial ballot are now your primary. Right? It's about who you can get to vote for you. It's not about money. Like, yeah, money can play a role in that even at that stage. Sure. But it's about who you can get to support you. It's about bodies, not money. And so after that, you have your primary, you have your top 5 for mayor or whatever. And each of those 5 people get a budget to run a campaign that is paid for through taxes, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously we'd have to find a way to strictly track this. They're not allowed to take donations. They're not allowed to take gifts. They're not allowed to take anything from anybody.
If you're proven to be in there, you're out.
Right. You immediately disqualify yourself.
You forfeit your right to run for office.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a great test, because you have to effectively run a campaign under a budget, which, if you're going to be in charge of anything, I need to know that you're good with money. Let's be real here. Mm-hmm. So if you can't balance a budget, you're going to screw yourself.
It's an interesting idea.
Right?
It's an interesting idea.
And that amount of money is scaled for the position that you're going for, right? So, like, obviously a presidential campaign stipend would be a lot more money than a mayoral run, right?
And then there'd be like debates that are
publicly funded, not cut. They're not. It's like, I want to do like Joe Rogan style, like this sort of thing, where you just put them in a room. There might be a moderator, but a moderator is there to guide the conversation, not tell them that their time is up.
Long form discussion,
back and forth, right?
I guess what you're saying is creating a system that prioritizes ideas over money.
Yes.
And influence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
that would be one way of going about it, and then adding term limits in there too.
Actually, I disagree with you. This is where I disagree with you. Because what you do is, instead of having term limits, because I understand the instinct for people to want term limits. I understand it. What I think instituting term limits does, however, is term limits are there to prevent bad people from staying there, right? That's what it is. But what it also does is prevent good people from staying there.
Yeah, that's fine. You have more people in there.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you're good at your job, why fire you?
It doesn't matter. Like, what I'm saying, like, if there's bad people in those roles, they will be out at some point.
Well, let me finish the thought.
And then
this system that I've created
goes for everyone. It's not about you being bad or good. It's just like, this is the amount of time you have to do it. You can have 3, 4, 5 terms, whatever. But there's limits. So you can't be like a Nancy Pelosi or any other career politician who's been there since, like, God, you were 18 years old or something, and now you're like 103.
But those terms would inherently have to be a little bit longer than 4 years, because you inevitably have short-term viewpoint policies or short-term viewpoint positions that they would take, because they know that they have to try and get something accomplished. Or not. Or they don't even bother, because once they're in, they know they're going out.
So that should give a little fire under their ass to get moving and do some stuff.
But they don't have an incentive to do stuff, because it doesn't keep them in their job.
The incentive is the duty of helping everyone.
Yeah, the thing is nobody is incentivized that way. Not really.
Okay, then maybe we should add in lobbyists or something. I don't know.
No. What I'm saying is, okay, here's what I'm saying.
Incentivize these people.
I'm saying.
Oh wait, huh?
I'm saying what you do is, you don't have term limits, but what you do is that the incumbent, right? You have these stipends in political races that they're not allowed to spend more than this amount on this type of campaign. The incumbent always has a statistically significantly less budget than the challenger. because the incumbent has the benefit of track record. They've been in the position, so they should be able to stand on the merits of what they've done. Mm-hmm. Right? And so if you increase how grueling the competition is for the incumbent, the chances of you having somebody, it's not perfect, but the chances of you having somebody who is terrible at their job staying in there when they can't use outside corporate money or gifts or anything like that to tip the scales in their favor, and the scales are actually tipped against them when they're running to some degree when it comes to the money portion.
Oh, so you're saying to incentivize people to do a good job?
Yes, to incentivize them to do a good job.
Right, because they're getting a barrage of potential
challengers.
Exactly.
Yeah. And those challengers have a money advantage, but they have an advantage of I've done the job. So if they've been doing a good job, the money advantage doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
That's how I think. I mean, I haven't obviously.
I dig it. Like I dig the idea because it takes care of several issues. Pulling money out and special interests, pulling lobbyists away from that whole thing, and then it also incentivizes doing the work as opposed to pretending to do things.
And honestly, I feel like you would probably get more voter turnout because they would see that their votes matter.
Yeah.
Like you would have people being overturned left and right initially.
All right, people, if you're still listening to this, I want you to comment what you think about this idea. And then I want you to reach out and we should have a discussion about this because I want people to tear this apart.
Yeah, please do.
Because it's untested, obviously. And it sounds good at face value, but I would love to actually
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I would relish in somebody ripping apart this idea and seeing where it falters.
We could have a better system for sure.
Yeah.
Is this what it looks like? Maybe.
But we're never talking about that.
It would take care of a lot of these issues. I mean, the idea that so much corporate money is in these political elections the fact that Wall Street was happy that Kamala Harris was the VP pick just tells you everything you need to know about her.
Yeah.
I've got stocks, sure. Okay, cool. The stock market's doing well and they're happy, sure. That means more money for me. But it's not about me. It's about us.
Well, the thing is that if we are doing bad, you are doing less than you could be. Because you doing well in a bad system is not the same thing as you doing okay in a great system. You want me to recash that?
No, it just sounds like you're talking about communism.
No, I'm not talking about, not even a little bit. What I'm saying is that
Alec is the Trojan horse for communism.
That would surprise even me. No, it's the whole rising tide moves all ships sort of philosophy of and it's
trickle down economics type of thing.
No. What I am saying is that if everybody is focusing on their piece of the pie and not how big the pie is, we're gonna have a bad time.
Right.
And I feel even how and I'm not saying that, there should be a bunch of tax loopholes and the ability to put money in offshore accounts and yada, yada, yada for a bunch of super rich people. Obviously, I think that's wrong. I think rich people should pay taxes. But you're dealing with, in that particular situation, you're dealing with a group of people that have enough power and ability to where if they don't want to be part of the deal that you're trying to give them, they can walk away from the table. Like you and me, we can't walk away from the table of America's economic system or taxes. We don't have that power.
Not easily.
But no. Jeff Bezos totally does. He can walk away from it whenever he wants.
He has all of the money.
And so when you're dealing with somebody that has the ability to walk away from the table, trying to apply force to them doesn't work. So trying to go we're going to tax them and we're going to close these loopholes, it's just they're just going to leave. That's what they were already doing. They're just going to leave.
Life finds a way.
Right. And so even though it feels slimy, you would have to find a way to incentivize them to bring more of their money, because even though it sounds good to tax them more because you can get this amount of money, whatever, if say Jeff Bezos' net worth is 117 billion, something like that.
I don't know.
Okay,
it rose by 20 billion the other day.
Right. So this dude's worth a lot of money.
Wall Street went up high.
And what I'm saying is if you were to tax him at 90%, right? But because he knows you're going to tax him at 90%, he's going to maneuver his money and his assets to where only $10 million of that is actually taxable, right? So you've just gotten yourself $9 million. Great. Or let's call it billions. Let's make it bigger. $9 billion, right? You've gotten $9 billion. That feels good. But if you were to say tax him at 10% and he were to put half of his wealth in there, you end up with more money. So it's like, it's one of these things where it's like, what is your end goal? Is your end goal to like be mad at these people? And the same thing with like, that's kind of how I'm trying to conceptualize this electoral system that I'm thinking about. Is it's about incentives. It's about how do you motivate people to do what you want them to do,
using human nature,
right,
to create the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to pretend that humans don't behave like humans.
Taking advantage of things and opportunities.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you. I definitely want some lively discussion about this. And do we know any scholars
It would be nice
in the field of political theory who?
I know a lot of people in DC, so maybe.
All right, DC crowd.
This is where you get to shine.
Hit us up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about these things with somebody who knows more than I do.
Yeah, because we don't know a lot at all. Like, we know some things, but we don't know most things.
I'm essentially just theorizing. I'm like the armchair philosopher.
It's basically the subtitle of the show. Man bites job, armchair philosophy. Basically. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Are we...
I guess a way to close off.
I was being very passionate earlier. Now I'm like...
Yeah. A way to close it off.
Where
do you see this heading? Where do you see this heading?
Not good.
I mean, but beyond that, obviously we both agree on that. But do you think...
Where do we see this heading after?
Who wins?
Not us. No one we
answer.
know is going to be in a good position. I mean, some people will be fine. A lot of people will be fine.
Right.
It'll be status quo, so it'll be fine. But, a lot of people who are suffering or were suffering before the coronavirus are suffering 10 times worse now. And they're just going to continue to do so. And that's a lot of people. Their needs are never going to be met no matter who's in office, depending these two options that have been given to us.
So you think we're headed for an economic collapse, huh?
Oh, in terms of that? Yeah, that's where I was going. I mean, that seems to be the direction. It's like the market is people are happy in the stock market.
It always rockets before
spikes
it crashes.
before it crashes. Yeah, it's a balloon for sure. I don't know. No one can time it, but like it just feels like if people don't have money and people can't just not even buy basic things, let alone go buy houses and go shopping and stuff like that. If people can't do that, that's what the market kind of relies on.
Yes.
I think we've been artificially kind of passing the baton essentially down the road because of
kicking the can.
That's it, kicking the can down the road just because a lot of people have gotten unemployment and things like that, and so things are generally okay for the time being, but it's not a matter of if to me.
It's a matter of when.
Exactly. So I think we're in for a pretty dastardly economic collapse.
Well,
what do I know?
It would follow my 2020 prediction that I'm really feeling bad every time it comes up.
Get the virus?
Because I have this joke because we were going into the roaring 20s and I'm like, well, you know what happened last time? We had a pandemic.
No.
We had an economic collapse, and then we had a war. A world war.
A big one, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that'll probably happen this time. And I said that tongue in cheek.
And everyone laughed.
Everyone had a good time.
Oh, Alec, you're so stupid.
And we have a virus.
Now you're only, economic collapse.
We're potentially approaching an economic collapse. And the only way you climb out of that, it seems like through history, is to have a really big war.
Yay. I hope not.
I do too.
I
really hope I'm wrong about that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm glad that you lightened up the conversation with that one. What I will say is that I am, my heart is warmed by the fact that there are a lot of people from within communities around the country who are using the Trump thing and seeing these establishment politicians and getting fed up with the lack of anything happening. And using that as kind of a jumping off point to get into the system and start. Hopefully they're not corrupted by it, and hopefully enough of them come in so they can start the AOC thing where you have the squad and it's like they speak up when they feel like their own crowd is not doing the right thing, and that's sorely needed.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with them on everything, but you can respect the hell out of them.
I do respect that. Yes.
And I'd love to see more of that. So the fact that we are seeing a little bit more of that in the primaries around the country.
I mean, we've got a 22-year-old, we've got a 19-year-old that's front running in one of the primaries now, which I don't think is necessarily the best idea, but still, what I'm saying is that if this 19-year-old can be a front runner in a primary, like go do something. Seriously.
Yeah, get off Twitter and get your headphones off, Alec. And go run for mayor.
That's a different episode, Omeed.
More on that later. You didn't hear it from here. But anyway, yeah, I guess stop complaining and start doing something, Alec.
And well, part of to defend myself, thank you very much. Part of what this is it's me encouraging people. It's me getting people to think. It's me talking through these ideas so that way the people that are currently in power, the systems that are currently in power, don't control the conversation.
No, our contribution here is partially to start the conversation. Yeah, I know. We're trying to push conversations and trying to open minds and get people to talk.
You don't know what I'm prepping to do.
Let me just be clear that I am not running for anything. I'm happy to sit here and chat about it. This is my version of Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, but I am on this. So you can reach me here.
I'm just going to keep asking Omeed what he would do as president, and then eventually I'll just make a campaign ad for him based off of those clips.
Joke's on you. I won.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be fine with that.
I can't do much worse than these guys. So, but yeah, anyway, so that's I think that's a good spot.
Yep.
To finish off. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope it wasn't lame. Yeah.
This has been Man Bites Dogma.
Episode 4.
Catch you guys later.
See ya.